Why did the woman at my door think I was the other woman? I was picking paint colors for the apartment we were moving into next month when someone knocked on my door. 2 weeks ago, I turned down a job offer in Seattle because my boyfriend said we were building a future here, and this Saturday, my entire family was meeting him for the first time at our reunion. I opened the door expecting a package, but a woman stood there staring at me with this confused look on her face. She asked, "Does Trenton live here?" And I knew something was wrong just from how she said it. I told her no, but he's my boyfriend, and I watched her smile totally freeze like someone pulled the plug on her brain. She said, "That's impossible. We've been together for 2 years." And I actually laughed because this had to be some crazy ex who couldn't move on. But then she pulled out her phone and showed me texts from him dated last week saying he still loved her and needed time to figure himself out. Now my brain wasn't working too, and I dropped the paint samples I was holding. She scrolled to photos of them together from last weekend with the date and time right there on the screen. Last weekend when he told me he was at his warehouse shift. She said he told her he was out of town this whole weekend, but she saw his car parked 2 blocks from here and followed it to my building. He was supposed to be at work right now, which meant every single thing he'd ever told me was probably fake. I asked her to come inside before my neighbors started listening. We sat on my couch and I told her I needed to see all of it. We pulled out our phones and put them side by side on the coffee table. Every Tuesday and Thursday he told me he worked night shifts. She had dinner photos with him on those exact nights with the timestamps visible. Every Sunday he said he had mandatory family dinner. She had selfies from her apartment with him in them. She said she thought they'd been on a break for 6 months while he worked on himself, but he never stopped seeing her at all. My family reunion was in 6 days, and I was planning to tell everyone we were moving in together. She looked at me and said, "I still have his whole family's phone numbers from when things were good between us." I could see she was just as angry as I was, and that's when I realized we were on the same side here, so we planned. I said we should meet him somewhere public so he couldn't just run away from this. Her whole face changed, and she said, "What if we make him sit through dinner with both of us at the same time?" We grabbed my laptop and made a spreadsheet with 2 columns, where he said he was and where he actually was. She said she could print it at work on Monday. I would text him asking for dinner Monday night at an Italian place since that was his favorite place, and he'd assume it was just another date. She would get there early and sit at a different table, then come over once he sat down with me. A few days later, and I was sitting at the table when he walked in looking completely normal and happy. He kissed my cheek and started asking about my weekend like he hadn't been lying to me for 6 straight months. I saw her get up from across the restaurant and start walking toward our table. The smile fell off his face the second he saw who was coming. She sat down without saying anything and slid a printed spreadsheet across the table to him. All the color left his face. He started talking fast, saying he could explain this and we didn't understand, but we just sat there and stared at him. He picked up the paper and his hands were shaking as he read through 6 months of every single lie. Then he reached for my hand and I moved it away from him. The couple at the table next to us actually stopped eating to watch. We stood up at exactly the same time. I said, "You're paying for both our meals," and we ordered the entire menu. She pulled out her phone and I heard her say, "Sending it to your family right now," as she followed me out. We left him sitting there with the spreadsheet in his hands while 5 waiters started bringing out the food we ordered to his lonely table. I emailed the Seattle company to ask if the job was still open. It wasn't. I lost it. Somehow that didn't feel as bad as it should have because at least I wasn't stuck with him.